This is Ryan Caudle from Sound&Shape, and you're listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me on Dog Bowl Studio is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on X at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Ryan Caudle of the Nashville-based rock trio Sound&Shape.
Yeah, promoting their latest album, Pillars of Creation. So, hey, let's get right to that interview, man.
All right, good night.
Good night. All right, Ryan, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce you, my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Ryan, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, well, hey, thanks for being patient with us. So let's get right into it. This past May, Sound&Shape released the band's latest album, Pillars of Creation. Can you give our listeners an insight to the creative ideology behind this new endeavor?
I don't think I had anything, super well. I say that, but we were going to do a double record initially. And so that was kind of the mindset going into it. So it was sort of a, let it all fly mentality when I started writing. So I was writing super long songs and stylistically just kind of hitting everything. And then, the more we thought about it, we were like, well, maybe let's rein it in a little bit for this one and, maybe do a double on the next one. And then we ended up signing a deal for this one. And, not that we don't really let those kind of things dictate what we do artistically, but it just, I wrote, I think, like 60-ish songs for the record. And, just in listening and paring them down and stuff, we got to the 12 or 10 full songs that we got to, and then the bookends, and we're like, okay, this is a really solid piece. So really the sort of the point on the horizon that we wanted to hit was just kind of expand in all directions on what we did with Disaster Medicine. So we wanted the longer pieces to be a little bit longer and more involved, and then the pretty atmospheric stuff to be a little bit more, I don't know if spacey is the right word, but just to be more textured and have, a little bit more meat to them and that kind of stuff. So.
Oh, very good. Well, yeah, in your bio, it talked about pushing wanting to push the boundaries of the band, and you guys are a trio, a three-piece. Can you talk a little bit about your band dynamics and how the songwriting works?
Yeah, so writing is literally me sitting on my bed watching TV with a guitar in my hand, and it's just kind of noodling around, and then I'll hit upon something that I like, and then I'll expand from that. And a lot of times I'll either have a riff in my head or something like that, and I'm kind of a collector of parts, and then I'll put parts together, and then the song comes that way. Or sometimes I'll hit upon a riff that I really like, and I'll just sit there and write the whole song. And then, but it doesn't really come to life until I take it to the guys, and then they put their stamp on it, and then it really becomes us. And being a 3-piece, it's limiting in a way, but it's also not, because it's kind of like how there are a couple Peter Gabriel records where he didn't let the drummer use cymbals because they had, he wanted to make them have to create new ways to sort of get their point across. So being a 3-piece, we're limited by the amount of people we have, but we have to come up with new ways to be creative, to just not play the same old things constantly. And I think that's really what kind of makes us unique. It's like we could just take these songs and they could be rock songs, and they'd be fine. But what really makes, especially Pat and Ben, stand out is they take the songs that I write, and then because of the fact that there's only 3 of us, to make them unique, they have to put their own stamp on them, and that's really what is the crux of the band, I think.
Fantastic. Talk a little bit more about the evolution of your songwriting from that of Disaster Medicine to Pillars of Creation.
I think with Disaster Medicine, I tried to be a little bit more lean. I would sort of cut the fat a little bit more, and not saying that there's superfluous parts on these songs, but I definitely the Disaster Medicine I almost looked at as like a pop record, in terms of each section just really needed to get to the point quickly, whereas composing this stuff, I wanted it to have a little more room to breathe compositionally, and not be so what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, I've been in a band for 10 hours.
Yeah.
Not be so herky-jerky and so frantic, I guess. So some of the parts stick around a little bit more and sort of establish themselves, and they evolve a little bit more, instead of here's the part, we're going to jam it home, and then it's going to go on to the next part. So it's just, there's a little bit more breathing room on this record. Whereas on the Disaster Medicine stuff, it's all just kind of like the whole record is basically just in your face the whole time.
Yeah, very good. Yep.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the cover art of Sound&Shape. Pretty cool picture there of kind of Greek pillars, and then some neon colors. And can you talk a little bit about how the band goes about picking the cover art?
Yeah, this one was really interesting, actually, because so I'm a huge Noel Gallagher fan.
Yeah.
I'm a Noel Gallagher nerd, and have been since I was a teenager. And so I guess it was his 3rd solo record, Who Built the Moon. I really loved that cover, and then he had the same artist do all the cover art to the singles for that record, and then he put out 3 EPs after that record, and the same artist did all that. And the cover art was just amazing. And I looked up who it was, and it's this guy named Gareth Halliday. And just on a wild hair, I was like, I'm going to reach out to him and, see if it's even, financially feasible, if he charges, way too much for a tiny independent band, and, if he would even respond to me if we're 2 small potatoes. So I just, found his, artwork Facebook and sent him a message, and I was like, hey, we're doing a new record, and I love your stuff. And he was like, yeah, I'd love to. Here's my price. And it was extremely reasonable, and I was like, okay. So he had me send him some of the demos for the record, and then he had me send him all the lyrics for the album, which I thought was really neat, and had me pick out some of the images, because I tend to write sort of more image heavy sometimes. So he had me pick out some of the images from the lyrics that I liked, he just kind of ran with that. And I think that was maybe the second idea he sent us. I mean, the first one was very similar. And then before I was even able to like kind of give any pointers on the first one, he sent that one, and all three of us were like, yep, that's it.
Yeah, nice.
So.
Very nice. Well, Sun-Haired is my favorite track on Pillars of Creation. Can you give our listeners an insight to the construction to that song? It's a beautiful song.
Oh, thank you. That song, that was actually the last one I wrote for the album. And I kind of always write, it's a bad habit of mine, and I'm sure it drives the guys nuts. They're both sitting here in the room. I always we'll get most of the songs done that we're going to do for an album, and then I'll write like a batch of more songs, and I'll be like, I don't know, we got to do these. And I wrote Ruining the Fairy Tale and Sun-Haired Sky Mother, and then another one all like in the same span of a couple of days. And then the other one didn't make it on the record. I don't think we ever actually worked on it. And that one started life as a completely different riff that I had in my head, and then I ended up tuning. It's in this weird tuning, which is why we'll probably never play it live. It's in drop D, but then you also drop the A string down to G, because I wanted to have this drum thing. It's a long story, but and I wrote it like that, and the lyrics were about a couple of friends who sadly are no longer with us that had passed during COVID, and not from COVID, but had passed during the pandemic from unrelated things. I felt that like the whole rest of the record is very riff heavy, and a lot of crazy guitar stuff and crazy drum stuff and crazy bass stuff. I was like, we kind of need one song on the record that kind of brings us back to earth. That song I thought was a good one for that, and especially like where it's placed on the record. You have all these, crazy songs before it. And then we had a friend of ours named Michael Omardian, who's a pretty legendary producer and string arranger, do the string arrangements or the orchestral arrangements for it.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you for liking that.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about the last song you wrote there, but one of the things I like when we're talking to artists is are all the songs new for this album, or do you have any song like a song on here that was maybe you wrote it 10 years ago or something? What's the oldest song on the album?
As full-on songs, they were all written for this record. There's a couple riffs. The opening riff to Is a Wilted Rose Still Red I've had forever. And I could just never stick it anywhere, or could never wrote a proper song around it that I liked. And then there's a couple riffs in Look for Me in the Sky that have been kicking around for a while, but otherwise, yeah, everything is pretty new. Ruining the Fairy Tale, I literally wrote in like 30 minutes from the ground up, which is how I normally prefer to do things, because it's like, it's almost like it was floating out there in the air somewhere, and I just got lucky enough to kind of grab it.
Awesome.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Ryan Caudle songwriting vault.
I mean, you just wrote 60 songs for this one.
Exactly.
So you must have a lot.
So we talk to a lot of artists on this podcast that they keep everything that they riff out, and they store it away in a file somewhere. And then we have other artists that if they don't use it, they pitch it, or they use everything that they have. So for you, what is the songwriting vault like for Ryan Caudle?
I'm kind of somewhere in between. I'm pretty ADHD, so if I'll come up with a riff, and if I really, really like it, 9 times out of 10 I'll remember it, and usually at the time I think, I need to record this, so I don't forget it. And whether or not I, in the moment, remember to record it, that's kind of 50-50. But I've got all all the songs and all the ideas from what would become Pillars of Creation pretty much saved, I believe. And then I think I had written maybe 25-ish for Disaster Medicine, and they're all somewhere. And I think there's probably, because I think we demoed, I think 16 or 17 for Disaster Medicine, and then only 10 made the record. So I mean, there's a sizable amount of unreleased stuff floating between us and on my computer and on our just on hard drives and stuff between the three of us.
Oh, very good.
Let's talk a little bit about your merch store. You have a merch store on your website, and you obviously have the new album, the LP and CD, and on there, and a T-shirt. Can you talk a little bit about how the band and their approach to either merch in the store or merch on tour?
Yeah, we always try to keep the merch designs close to the album art, as well as any tour art or anything like that. I really like to keep everything sort of, or we all do like to keep everything sort of visually in line with each other. And it's a lot of bands, and this isn't a knock on any other bands, a lot of bands are sort of like merchandise companies first and then bands second.
Exactly.
And which I understand, because I mean, honestly, that's where a lot of bands' incomes come from, ours included. And but I think there can be a point where it gets a little too much. And I mean, we certainly will expand our offerings, and it's just kind of a matter of like putting the cart before the horse. Like, I don't think you'll ever see Sound&Shape like foam fingers or anything like that. But there's a fine line between commerce to fund your band to continue to make the art you want to make, and then the flip side of that, which is where your music is a commercial for your merchandise. And we're definitely all in agreement where we don't want to become that band. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with bands that do that. That's just not our thing. But yeah, I mean, merch is merch, and it's always been that way since the first Beatles T-shirt sold. And that's the way bands operate these days.
Oh, very good. Well, you had spoke at the beginning of the interview about how Pillars of Creation was intended to be a double album, which it is not. Can you talk a little bit more about the tall task that it is to write a double album? And I obviously, from listening to you talk, that's coming down the road soon. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think, in a way, the excitement for me behind doing something like that is it gives you, not that we feel artistically constrained at all, because I think that sort of the world that we operate in, anyway, nobody's telling us what to do artistically, and if they tried, we wouldn't listen anyway. But when you make the decision to head down that road and do a body of work like that, sort of all the rules are out the window anyway, because you can't, if you're going to do a double record, you can't do 30 songs that are all going to sound the same. Like, you just can't. So it automatically affords you the ability to really explore like the farthest reaches of what you can do stylistically, because you have to, otherwise it's not going to keep anybody's attention. And really the hard part, and it's, to be honest, it's sort of the hard part for making any record, is you have to make, at least for us, our goal is always to make an album that works as an album, as a complete piece. But the pieces also need to work on their own. So, if you want to sit down and listen to Pillars of Creation end to end, we want to make it to where, at the end of the 54 minutes or whatever, you're going to be like, holy shit, that's a great fucking record. Sorry, I don't know if I can curse on this.
Oh, no, you're good.
But if you're just driving in the car for 15 minutes and you say, oh, I want to listen to 2 or 3 songs, you're going to get an enjoyable experience out of that too. So when you extrapolate that to a double album, it's, you know, it's not just twice as hard, it's exponentially as hard because, you know, it's this expanded universe, for lack of a better term. And I like a challenge because, you know, we as a band are very, very ambitious, and there's no point where we're ever just going to say like, oh, well, we know what to do, so we're just going to do that. You know, we're always going to go into any sort of artistic endeavor being like, well, we've already done this thing. We don't want to repeat ourselves. So how are we going to do this new thing, essentially?
Very good.
Well, kind of what you said there is how I felt after track number 2, Look for Me in the Sky. I went, wow, I can't wait to hear the rest of this. This is awesome.
Awesome.
So can you talk a little bit about narrowing the 60 songs down to 12 tracks? You mentioned that. Is there a few songs you didn't include that, you know, kind of broke your heart a little bit that didn't get included, or you're good with the 12?
I'm good because I was pretty cutthroat with it. I was just amassing this sort of, you know, giant list, and I just sat there because I knew the ones, like sort of the slam dunk ones that I, you know, immediately took to the band to put together and learn, and you know, when they're enthusiastic about a song, then I know it's you know, there's no question about it. And if it's a lackluster reception from them, then I don't even think twice about it. It just goes away. But I sat there over the course of a couple of days and just listened through everything, and I had my notebook and just had a, you know, A, B, and C list, and it just kind of became pretty clear. Like if something sounded too much like something else, it was out. If one of them I felt was better, or if something sounded too much like, you know, one of the older songs, or, you know, just, you know, if it didn't scratch a certain itch. So it was easier than I was afraid it was going to be. I'll put it that way.
Well, very good.
Well, yeah. So we kind of a little amiss in not asking you about the other 2 guys in the band. Can you tell us a little bit about your other band members?
Yeah. They're, like I said, they're both here with me, so I can't say anything too bad. But no, I mean, to me, they're, you know, like, you know, Sound&Shape's been a band for a long time, but I mentioned this in another interview a few weeks ago. I don't feel like the band has really been the band until like 3 of us got together, which is why I always kind of say that Disaster Medicine to me feels like our first record, because it was the first record with the 3 of us, and so it really feels like the first proper record. And that's not to, you know, discount anything that, you know, we have done before, but you know, this is the longest tenured lineup. We've done the most. We've made the most progress. It's by far, you know, the best lineup, you know, and I know every band says, oh, I have the best, you know, this or that, but like, you know, I would not want to play these songs with anybody else. And I don't know, it's hard to be too mushy with them looking at me, but yeah. No, I love these guys with all my heart, and it just, you know, it's cliche to say like, oh, when the first time we played together, it just, you know, gelled. But like, you know, Ben, our drummer, he was originally just supposed to fill in for a tour, and the first time we rehearsed, it was one of those moments where I think we both were just like, oh wait, like this actually, like this works. This is one of those times where it just feels like that. And then the same when Pat joined, it was just an immediate like, oh, okay, so this is a band. So this is what, you know, it feels like. And I think it's that's proven itself by the fact that like we've kind of hit the milestones that we have, like, you know, on the business side and then on the fan side, and, you know, being able to do the things that we've done since we've been together. And yeah, it's great. So
fantastic. You know, this modern day recording technology, we see more artists recording music remotely from home. opposed to going into a proper studio and knocking it out together as a whole. But for the band, where is the preference for you guys, doing it in the comforts of your own home, or do you guys knock it out in a proper studio?
So our Ben has turned the big room in his house into a studio. So kind of both, I guess. But we the way we did it is Greasy Will, the gentleman who produced the album, flew out from LA, and we set everything up. It's where we rehearse too, so it's very comfortable. And we all played in the room together, and everything went to tape, but it went to Pro Tools. But we were all playing in the room together for all the basic tracks, and pretty much everything, I want to say about 90% of what Pat played together with Ben went down at the same time. So we all played the whole record together. And then I went, I of course went back and overdid guitars and vocals, and then Pat, and Will all did keys and stuff. So it's kind of a hybrid of both. I mean, we were at a house, but we were all together the whole time. So.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the questions I had down was, I'm probably going to say the name wrong, but Greasy Will Ansbach, he's worked with Metallica, Muse, Red Hot Chili Peppers, to name a few. Can you talk a little bit about the band's working with Greasy?
Yeah, he was great. He's wacky, but he was a ton of fun to work with, and I drove him up the wall, and I look forward to doing it again on the next one. He was great. He's worked with a ridiculous amount of people, and he's used to working in huge studios out in LA, like the best of the best. He was a staff engineer at East West, which is one of the biggest, nicest studios in the world. And him agreeing to come produce our record in Ben's house with not even a tenth of the gear that he's used to working with was amazing. So that in and of itself was incredible of him, and he was very easy to work with, and he pulled, to me, what I think were my best vocal performances out of me, and I did it all in 2 days, and with him just being like, I'm not going to let you up, I'm not going to let up. You're just going to do this until it's not even that it's right, but until it's good, until I think it's good, meaning him. And I was just like, all right, let's do this. And I've never been more tired than I was after we finished this album. It was just 8 solid days of just insanity. And guitar-wise too, my goal on this record was to go in with all the guitar solos written, and of course I didn't do that. But that led to him really pulling some really interesting solos out of me, which I now curse his name every night we go to play because I have to try to replicate those, and some of them are just impossible because I just completely pulled them out of thin air. But yeah, he was great to work with, and I really hope we get to do it again, and I'm sure we will.
Sorry for interrupting you, but I wanted to get in, as we're kind of running out of our allotted time, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what does the band have in store for your fans for the rest of 2024 and 2025, in the early part of 2025, as far as touring and playing live?
Well, we're out right now. We're doing another short run with King's X right now. I don't know when this will be up, but we're in Sellersville, Pennsylvania tomorrow and Friday with them, and then Red Bank, New Jersey. And then we're taking August off because we've had a pretty busy summer so far, or busy spring and summer. And we're working out fall right now. We're out with King's X again in December. But yeah, the plan is just to tour, and more tour, especially next year. And then, do another record, probably start by the end of next year to be out in 26. But yeah, the plan is always to play live as much as we can and record in between that. So.
Very good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, being a Nashville-based rock trio. Most people think of Nashville country and all that stuff, but, more and more rock bands have gone to Nashville to record and that kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit about being a rock band in Nashville?
Yeah, it's not easy, especially being a rock band like us. I mean, we're sort of the outcast among the outcasts when it really comes down to it. Nashville has always been cliquey, and it's gotten, I don't know if it's gotten better or worse, but, rock is a tough sell there to begin with, even now. And when you have a band like us who sort of rides the line between prog, progressive or whatever you want to call it, and, just straight ahead rock, like, there's a lot of raised eyebrows and confused looks and, but we've sort of carved out our niche, and the Nashville scene, which is the alternative weekly music magazine there, has been very, very supportive over the last couple of years, and that's been wonderful. They're really great people. And growing up reading the Nashville scene, it's always, it's been great to have their support over the last couple of years. So they're coming around. The rock scene in general is coming around, and there are some really good bands there. But yeah, Nashville as a whole, it's so inundated with musicians of all kinds. It's just kind of hard for anybody to keep their head above water.
Well, I have one last question for you. We'll leave it alone for the evening.
You're good.
So the band has participated in a few music videos. Can you talk a little bit more about, I guess, the changing of the guard when it comes to music videos, with MTV not being what it was, or it's not even, I don't even know what it is anymore. But the with TikTok and YouTube being so prevalent, and Reels, and we can go on and on. How important has it been for you and the rest of the band to create music videos? Is it a necessary evil these days, or is it just something that you guys enjoy doing?
I don't enjoy them. I don't know if any of us do. I mean, they're definitely necessary. I don't know they're necessary in the fact that if you get one that goes viral, they're extremely helpful. But the sheer number of bands trying to make one that will go viral almost means that it's almost an impossibility that yours will go viral unless it's, I don't know. It's sort of impossible to tell what's going to hit and what's going to, what's not going to these days. That's why we just did one proper one for this record and then 2 lyric videos, because the marketing folks at the label were like, you guys have to have some sort of, video component for the second single and then the focus track for when the record comes out, which is totally fine. And we don't mind doing, visual stuff. I personally would like to get into more, strictly like more artistic, like sort of art-based, visual stuff for videos, as opposed to the sort of traditional, like, band playing in a room with other images interspersed kind of stuff. But that all takes, a lot of budget and more know-how than we have, because we have to do everything in-house because we're still, tiny. Mm-hmm. But, we've kind of done what we could, I think, with that so far. And, with the next record, I hope to be able to do something a little more artistic and a little more interesting with that. Not in the name of trying to go viral or catch a moment or anything like that, but just to fulfill an artistic side of us that we haven't really been able to explore yet. So hopefully we'll be able to do that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, like I said, we're out of our allotted time for the evening. Is there anything that we left off that you would like to plug or promote?
No, I just, hope people get to listen to the record and enjoy it.
Fantastic. Well, this is how things are going to work out. Once Jeff, the editing ninja over here, he's going to make it sound like $1 million, and I'll send it to you guys immediately and your publicist. And and share it wherever you possibly can on all your socials. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime.
All right,
anytime.
we'll be in touch.
All right, sounds great. You guys have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
You too.
Everybody hides at home inside their nest of snakes. Everybody grinds the stone and makes their own mistakes. Hide in the headlights, fight the grip of fear. You can make your dreams come true, but you just can't do it here. Everybody eyes the gun and screams inside their head. Everybody bites their tongue and pays their bills instead. Hide in the spotlights, fight the grip of death. You can have the air you need, but you best not take one breath. Hey! Roll the dice. Take your chances. Everybody knows the game is fixed, there is no prize. Everybody pulls the plug and says their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine, fight the grip of nights. If they ever take from you, then you plug out both their eyes. Hey! Roll the dice. Take your chances.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.